I'd like to welcome everybody back. We've come to the concluding session of our 2021 Fall Technical Conference being held virtually. So we thank everyone for being here. Again, we can't thank our sponsors enough, Sunbelt Rentals and also the IICRC. Our concluding session today has the title Escape the Fast Lane. We see that it's an acronym being shared there. How do we address burnout? How we can manage priorities and increase our quality of life? And our presenter for this final session is Tim Williamson. Tim currently serves as the franchise business consultant team lead for Rainbow International. I have the privilege of working with Tim every day. Tim's been in the restoration industry for over 25 years. He's worked in practically every capacity that you can. He's been a salesperson, estimator, worked at a large office for Belfour, but he also owned his own independently owned and operated restoration company for a number of years, which he sold. Under his leadership, his company there in New Mexico was voted one of the top 5 places to work and listed as one of the top 100 businesses by Moss and Adams. Tim's a certified ICF leadership coach. And as I mentioned, he currently leads a team here at Rainbow International, the franchise out of Waco, Texas for us. So I think you guys will get a lot of valuable insights out of this. Tim does a lot with focusing on the stories that we tell ourselves and how that influences our energy and how we approach each day. So without further ado, Tim, I'm going to turn it over to you, and we look forward to your session.
Thank you, Josh, and thank you for having me speak today. We've heard from some phenomenal speakers today, and I hope everybody gained a lot out of their time today. So addressing burnout, which is common in our industry. I mean, we will live and work in a I call it it's not a job or a career, it's a lifestyle. Right? And so it's not uncommon for us to maybe sit down at dinner with our families or be at a soccer game and our phone ring and we have to go. We got to go help somebody. And so oftentimes we can experience what I call the fast lane. And so today what we want to cover in this presentation is what are the biggest contributors to burnout and maybe identify some hidden patterns that may be keeping us from achieving our goals. And at the end, we'll provide a proven strategy that you can apply that can help avoid experiencing burnout. So let's look at some of the things that lead to burnout. So this is interesting. According to Gallup, 87% of workers worldwide are disconnected from their work. In fact, work is a source of frustration for them, and 90% of the world's workers are not experiencing fulfillment in their work. And this leads to all levels, right? So this is ownership, management, all the way to employees. And so when our companies are experiencing this level of dissatisfaction and frustration, it leads to turnover, right? And of course, we all know if we run a company or we operate a company, we're leading people, turnover sometimes can be a source of frustration or stress for us. But turnover also costs us anywhere from 50 to 100% of that employee's annual wage. And so when you think about that in today's hiring market, it's kind of tough, right? So kind of the best way to avoid turnover or hiring is to keep our people that we have. Let's let that sink in a minute, right? So if you look at your businesses, I look at mine, if we have 25% turnover every year, what's that really costing us, right? Not just the hard dollars, but what are the lost opportunities from that? Just think about that for a second as we transition on. Again, 40 million adults in the United States suffer from anxiety disorders, right? And that's according to the Anxiety and Depression Association of America. And of course, anxiety has an impact on productivity and that sense of fulfillment, right? And so As a result of these high levels of anxiety disorders, many take medications just to keep things on an even keel. Going on, and additional, the Anxiety and Depression Association found that stress impacts the quality of sleep. And when we're stressed, we don't sleep well, we don't eat well. Generally, we have less physical activity. So, and just think about this as we look at this, as some of the statistics, these fast lane statistics, right? Sleeping, 70% of us are sleeping less than usual, right? 44% maybe eat less or don't eat as well. And then 43% exercise less. So just take a minute, think about a time maybe you were experiencing stress and how that affected you. So we look more at the fast lane statistics, right? So with 20% of Americans suffering from chronic sleep loss, and we know that poor sleep loss contributes to weight gain, headaches, high blood pressure, diabetes, depression, and it contributes to an impaired immune system. Another big contribute that sleep loss contributes to is attention deficit disorder. Here's an interesting statistic that chronic sleep loss causes 1,500 deaths a year in car accidents from people falling asleep. So when we talk about the fast lane, what has you in the fast lane? Remember, FAST is an acronym for frustrated, anxious, stressed, and tired. And so let's look at, we're going to take a few minutes. We're going to look at what has you in the fast lane. So wherever you are, if you have a pen and paper handy, think about frustration. Right? Frustration is feeling upset, annoyed, and this generally because of an inability to change or achieve something. So take a second, write down or think of something that that has you frustrated or that gets you frustrated. And then on a scale from 1 to 10, rate that. 1 being a low intensity and 10 being a high intensity. I can tell you, I'll share with you, I get frustrated when systems and processes make my life more difficult. Right? That's an area of frustration for me, right? And I would probably put that on an intensity of a 6 or 7. And just give you a minute there. Now, anxious, right? Anxiety is that feeling of worry, nervousness, or unease, typically about an event or something that we're uncertain about, right? We don't. What are some things that causes some worry or nervousness in and around your life, right? And rate those on a scale from 1 to 10, 1 being a low intensity, 10 being high intensity. Okay. Let's look at stress, right? So, stress is a state of mental or emotional strain. What are some things that are causing you stress right now? And rate those on an intensity. Right? 1 being low intensity, 10 being high. All right. So I hope you're writing these down because we're going somewhere with this. And then tired. right? So need of sleep, rest. What are some things that keep you tired? Right? Again, rate those on a scale from 1 to 10, 1 being a low intensity, 10 being a high intensity. Okay. So when we think about these things that have us in the fast lane, frustrations, anxiety, stress, tired, really that comes from the stories that we're telling ourselves about what we're experiencing, right? And so we all enter into this world as a blank canvas. We have no belief systems. We have no judgments, a right or wrong about anything. And how we're raised, education, life experiences, all go into building our beliefs. And it's really how these beliefs translate into how we show up, right? And it's really about this simple formula, right? Our thoughts drive our actions. Correction, our thoughts are driving our feelings and emotions, and those emotions and feelings are what drives our actions, right? So it's our thoughts and our judgments around these situations that influence our responses. And so those stories that we tell ourselves. So here's an example, right? So many of us has probably have heard this phrase: if you want something done right, you got to do it yourself. Owners and managers have often said, my people are lazy. They don't work as hard as I do. And so if you believe that, that's generally what we're going to get. So it goes to the stories that we tell ourselves, in that we believe our people are lazy. We believe our people are, if they don't do it right, we can only do it right. That's going to create a little bit of stress for us. Right? But if we believe, on the other hand, that people are capable, they want to do well, and we have a different outlook, and we experience less stress. So in order to sustain success, the first step really is to recognize how our thoughts and feelings are getting in our way, and how these thoughts and feelings are driving some of the stress, some of the frustration, anxiety in our lives. So let's look at what happens when we're operating in the fast lane. Right? So in this fast lane that drives us to burnout, and it's a physiological effect on our bodies. So this shows up as what we call catabolic energy, right? So this catabolic energy does a couple of things for us, right? So when we start to perceive a situation as stressful, as frustrating, we may experience some fear or doubt. We may experience anger. And we might even experience a little being overwhelmed or resentment, right? And so when we're experiencing this, and this is important to get, when we're experiencing this right now, our bodies generate, our brain sends a signal to our bodies to generate what are known as catabolic hormones, right? This is cortisol and adrenaline. So in order to, and it does it to give us the energy to get through the situation, right? But this energy comes from every cell in our body. And so although it does allow us to move and take action over a long period of time, this impacts our overall well-being, right? So it's a physiological effect. And as we know that adrenaline, right, it drives our cortisol. One of the biggest things that cortisol drives, it drives blood sugar. Elevated blood sugar can lead to other physical conditions heart disease and some other things, diabetes and some other diseases as a result of having that elevated cortisol. So over long term, though, it exhausts us physically. It drains us mentally and emotionally. And so when we're experiencing this energy, I apologize, our focus is on the pain, right? And so we're really in a problem focused mindset, and all we see is the problem, right? And so, so when you think about this, this is not necessarily bad. It's just an indicator of stress that's draining us. That's keeping us in the fast lane. As the longer we experience this, the more likelihood we're going to experience burnout. And that burnout is going to be both physical and mental and emotional, or all three. Right? So by becoming aware, let me go here, right? So what happens, right? So when we can get out of the fast lane, our body generates what's known as anabolic hormones. Now, anabolic hormones are they're constructive, they're healing hormones. They're to heal our bodies and help generate our cells. And overall, it allows our bodies to optimize itself. And as a result, it's easier to be solution focused, more energized, more engaged. And as a result, it propels us forward and allows us to see new opportunities. So we're going to look at just a couple of perspectives that really resonate or demonstrate what this catabolic energy looks like, and how and so that we can become aware of when we're experiencing it. So there's these predominant thoughts that keep us in the fast lane, and we're gonna look at these, and I call these levels 1 and 2, right? So level 1 is a victim, and so for every core thought, there's a core feeling, and then there's a core action. And this is important to recognize it in ourselves. But if we're leading a team we can recognize it in them, what they're experiencing, how they're experiencing, and become more aware of it. So that level 1, level 2 core thought is really conflict. We'll see that the emotion or feeling is anger, and then the core action is defiance. So both of these are catabolic levels, and in this state, we're really reactionary. We're at the effective life, and oftentimes we feel like we don't really have any options. So let's take a little deeper look at level 1, the victim, right? So we just talked about victim being the core thought, apathy, the feeling, emotion, and then the action is lethargy. So when we're here, right, our thoughts are outside of our control. Right? It's a sense of powerlessness. There's some feelings around fear, worry, doubt. Lethargy is the action. So we might recognize that as somebody being withdrawn or maybe just avoiding, in avoidance. So just ask yourself, when have you maybe noticed this in yourself, or you've noticed this in somebody around you or that works with you? You may hear, everything bad happens to me. They're going to feel as if they're just held hostage at life. And then ask yourself, how do you feel being around someone that's displaying this? And then level 2, right? We said conflict. Well, the other word, describer for this is, the fighter, right? So the thought here in this conflict is really about controlling, right? Micromanaging, being focused on the problem, It's very right or wrong or black and white thinking. You can read this, you can read the presentation, but there's some other things in there. It's somebody else's fault. We have to micromanage and really the focus here is an I win, you lose mindset, right? It's I'm right, you're wrong, I win, you lose. And I'll ask, when have you noticed maybe this is that verbiage of, hey, if you want it done right, you got to do it yourself. My people are lazy. So that's all level 2 thinking, right? That's that conflict, right or wrong, problem centric mindset. And so again, this is catabolic. It's draining. It's what's going to drain our bodies of energy and ultimately leads to burnout. So we'll take a moment and let's think about a time when you were at the top of your game, you felt the most energized and balanced, and that you were truly living out your purpose, right? Just take a few minutes and remember back when that was. Write it down, right? And then think about, an area in your life where you're in the fast lane, right? And, what would life be like if you weren't in the fast lane? Right? If you could pull that situation out of the fast lane and you can get right back into your flow. Just write down your thoughts around that. So what is our strategy? Right? So just remember our day is just a string of stimuli, right? It has no meaning other than what we assign to it. How we view a situation will either create stress, anabolic energy or catabolic energy rather, or it will create anabolic energy that lets us see an opportunity, right? One of my philosophies I've learned is there's no such thing as a mistake. There's only learning. Everything's an opportunity, right? So the key in avoiding burnout is becoming aware of the lens that we use by default and the choices that we make that supports or propel us. And so it's how we look at the world around us. So if you want to change your direction to avoid burnout, here's some very simple strategies that you can put in place today. Right? First thing is stop, breathe, and just observe your thoughts. What's the story you're telling yourself about what you're experiencing at that moment, right? What is the thought I'm having about the situation? Why am I having that thought right now? What is the real reason that I'm triggered? And how is it making me feel? And how am I acting because of it? Right? So if we look at these situations from all angles, right? What are different ways of looking at this? Right? In our industry, right? Technician left an air scrubber in the parking lot overnight. Homeowners decided they wanted to take a vacation on our insurance claim dollars, right? So let's look at different ways of looking at it, right? And so we have the power to choose how we respond in any situation. And so if we just take these strategies, and it will help us begin to be aware of how our thoughts are driving our actions and how we're feeling about things. Hey, and if you think you're going in the wrong direction, I'm here to let you know right now you have the power to change the direction at any time you want. You can no longer really need to be asleep at the wheel or acknowledge your own behavior, and it puts us in a place to take responsibility. So with that, hey, thanks for having me, and open up for any questions you may have.
Thank you so much, Tim. We appreciate this presentation. I know that this is a hot topic for so many of us, especially with all of the, extra conditions that we've been dealing with the pandemic and all of the stress that causes and involves. But at this time, if anyone has questions for Tim, if you would go ahead and type those into the chat box. I would just say, Tim, again, what do you think as we look ahead, what are some of the, if we had to do three things to change our behavior, kind of right away, what do you think would be the priorities, the small takeaways that we can work on ourselves to make these changes?
Oh, that's a great question, actually, Christy. I think the first thing is, um, and is just acknowledging that what I'm doing is not working for me. And it's so much more about, hey, my business may be doing great. I may have a lot of money in the bank, but guess what? I've got high turnover. I'm miserable. Everybody around me is miserable. And so it's really coming to that place where what I'm doing is not working. It's not working for me. It's not working for everybody, anybody around me. And so becoming aware of it. And acknowledging that, learning how, let me say this, becoming aware of how we're showing up in situations. Secondly, is becoming aware of how I'm viewing situations. Right? If I view everything as a problem, right? Everybody's heard this before. If the only tool I have is a hammer, then everything's a nail. Right? And so when we become aware of how our thoughts are really driving our actions and our emotions and our actions, then we begin to start to regulate those and change those. And so that awareness, and this is what I've learned, I've had to learn to do. And what I try to coach into people that I work with is we can put some speed bumps between our thoughts and our emotions. And then from our emotions and our actions, we're going to experience different outcomes and that are more favorable to us.
Very good. Appreciate that, Tim. Well, listen, thank you so very much for being with us here today on this important topic. And I just want to kind of to close us out for today's session, really want to just extend a huge thank you to all of you who attended today. I hope that you got valuable takeaways from being part of the convention, part of the conference here today. We want to thank all of our speakers who did a phenomenal job and volunteered their time and expertise to share with us today. Want to thank our Fall Tech Task Force volunteers for their work in planning our event. And we are, of course, extremely grateful for the support of our Fall Tech sponsors, Sunbelt Rentals and IICRC. Thank you so much for making this event possible. As a reminder, we will have an evaluation being emailed out to you all, a survey post-event, as well as your certificate of attendance, which is valid for your continuing education credits. The session recordings of today's events will be available starting next Monday, November the 15th, and are going to actually be available for through the end of December for viewing. If you had a question that you think of after today or something that we weren't able to answer earlier in the program, please feel free to email us at info@restorationindustry.org. We'll be happy to connect your question with our speakers today and respond to that. And then lastly, I just hope that you all will join us at RAA's 2022 International Restoration Convention and Industry Expo. We will be live and in person April 11th through the 13th, 2022 at the Peppermill Resort Spa Casino in Reno. And registration is going to be opening in the coming days. So look for information being sent on that. So again, thank you all for joining us today. And we hope that you got a lot out of today's program. Have a great afternoon.